He has 15,000 subscribers, and I think last time I checked, a little bit over 2 million views, which is pretty impressive. So thank you for coming on, Brennan.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'd love to know a little bit about you, how you got started. You talk a lot on drop shipping, which is what we'll be talking about today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, so of course you already introduced me. My name's Brennan. I originally got started with all this online business, drop shipping, all that kind of stuff, maybe about 2016 or so, I would say. Now, obviously, Shopify and all the different social media platforms looked a little bit different back then, of course. But yeah, it was when I was in college, just working on school and in my free time, and with some friends, just got started with online business, started an e-commerce store. Took a little bit of time to get going, but of course, learning the e-commerce software and learning online marketing primarily through Instagram. Of course, at the time, Instagram, still a great social media platform for marketing as well. Started that. It was a beauty store, funny enough, just because the one product that I had found to do well was a black face mask of all things, right? It was really trendy at the time. It was around springtime of 2017 when that product sort of took off at that time. And honestly just went from there, kind of parlayed that into also creating then here on this YouTube channel tutorials and how to, start a Shopify store, how to create a store, what types of products to look into, a wide variety of different things. Beyond that, even beyond drop shipping and stuff, I also have gotten into SEO, which is search engine optimization. So that's a whole nother career field, really, that is a quite lucrative career field, to say the least. It's a good jumping platform for a lot of people within SEO and Google. Of course, you have to manage the fluctuations there, which can always be a challenge. But yeah, did that with some various different clients and things like that as well. Yeah, and here we are now with YouTube and just continuing the different, avenues, different side hustles, different,
Hmm.
business ventures.
Awesome, and yeah, and I think your YouTube says it all. I mean, you talk about SEO on your YouTube, obviously very in depth on your drop shipping, and you even say like finance. So I think you're really like a great resource to know. So I know like in 2016 I was 15. I'm sure Fuad, what were you 15 in 2016? Yeah, and I didn't even hear of drop shipping until I mean like probably while I was like in college. So I think you're really probably one of the pioneers who like really hopped on that wave really early on. Because when I think drop shipping, I hear from everybody. Like there's so many people, like so many different types of gurus trying to sell something to you on YouTube or on Instagram. So I think you're someone really reliable because you got on that before anyone else, like before I even heard about it. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was an early trend, I guess you could say, that I happened to find through some friends.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool that you started with friends too. So like, you guys kind of started it together, or like, was it your idea or like your friend's idea? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so the guy who actually told me about it, he kind of works in the music industry now with like A&R and artist management and things like that. And he was just like, I found some courses. And back then, funny enough, one of the main people on YouTube was Dan Da Silva. I don't know if you ever heard of that name.
I'm not
Um,
familiar.
but yeah, I don't know if he really uploads too much content nowadays, but he was one of the first people who had little like Shopify tutorials. Him and Franklin Hatchett as well. I don't know.
Okay.
I think he creates content still now on different like online business, online marketing, things like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, back then it was. I mean, even myself, one of the few people in the space, that's for sure, compared to what it is now with I mean, a
Hmm.
million different people. But yeah, it was him, my friend, and then Zach as well. He also has a YouTube channel. He doesn't upload now, but
Hmm.
him and I used to just keep grinding at the different things, at that time.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think for our listeners who are pretty not as seasoned as you, or even a little bit more not as exposed as me and Fuad, what is dropshipping? How could you simplify that to someone who's never even heard of that before?
Yeah, so dropshipping in a nutshell is right. You have an online store, for example. One of the most popular online stores who does dropshipping as a method of fulfillment, it is just an order fulfillment method, is Wayfair. Their home furniture, tons of different home decor things. That's the easiest and most popular dropshipping example, really, is Wayfair.com. And so essentially what they do, they use dropshipping as an order fulfillment method where they have suppliers, contacts, and when you place an order on their website, then that order gets redirected to their supplier, and their supplier ships, manages the delivery of that product directly to the customer. Of course, there's going to be some margin in there. You're going to be paying more than what the supplier price is, of course. And as a business owner, that's the profit margin there, is that difference between what you're selling it for versus what you're paying the supplier for.
Yeah, and you know what? Like people are so new to it that even like a brick and mortar store, like they're just getting suppliers, right, and then they're marking it up into themselves. Like it's like basically where like the hub is. Like they're just that middleman, more so, right?
Yeah, essentially the middleman. Yeah. I mean, a lot of businesses order. The nice thing about dropshipping is you're not needing to order in bulk. So that's the one downside. I mean, it's a positive too in some ways because you have more control over things for sure, and you can get better margins. But with dropshipping, and why it's good for a lot of beginners, is you don't have to spend all or fork out all that money investing upfront in inventory cost, which if you watch Shark Tank, you see that that's a lot of the business's problems where they have too much money tied up in inventory and then they need loans and all those kind of things. So that's a nice thing where it differs from more traditional, e-commerce or even just a brick and mortar store, like you said. They're able to get things done in it's easier to get started if you have less money getting started with it, for sure.
Well, kind of going off of the capital required, like initial capital investment,
Yeah.
we actually wanted to know like a little more about like, let's say in your first product, the black face mask.
Yeah.
What was like the capital invested initial?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, you have your Shopify fee. You can't really get around that, or whatever e-commerce platform you decide to use. Of course, I like Shopify just because it's got all the app connections and it's really like the best e-commerce platform. That's just my personal opinion. Of course, there are a lot of other free to use platforms that I've also covered on my channel, like BigCommerce, Ecwid as well. So those are a couple other good ones. WooCommerce can be cheaper as well. You do have to pay for WordPress and hosting and things like that, but you're going to have that upfront website cost, domain, hosting, things like that. That's something you can't really get around. Or if you do use a free platform, then of course you're going to be limited on the amount of products you can sell. So you have that. Then you have the marketing costs. Now you can do free organic marketing through TikTok, Instagram, even people promote different products on YouTube as well, physical products, depending on, of course, the niche that you're in, as well as other social media platforms, maybe even Twitter. Of course, Instagram and TikTok are really the main ones, even YouTube to a lesser extent with physical products, but still there. You can pay for traffic and do paid ads through Facebook and things like that. That can get expensive really quickly, and you may not necessarily have a positive ROI. That's something that you could explore and get into, but that could be another expense. In terms of putting this on to raw numbers, if you're looking at Shopify, it's right now they have some promotions where it's like $1 a month for the first few months, but typically it's like anywhere from $29 a month to $39 a month for the basic plan, or if you have a free site with the other platforms I mentioned. So there's that cost. And then you also have the marketing cost, which could also be free as well. Or, you could rack up easily multiple hundreds of dollars in marketing costs very quickly, depending on how many ad sets you start testing and things like that. Product cost is something where you really don't have a product cost until someone places an order. So there's at least that solace in dropshipping is if someone places an order, then you pay for the product and ship it directly to them. So you at least don't have that cost of things, which is typically a huge cost that you have with regular e-commerce or other
Right. So
business.
the trade-off is that, you know, there's no high inventory cost. Like the cost of goods sold is almost zero until you make a sale, right?
Yes.
Which is really, really attractive. But, you know, to really be profitable, you need pretty high advertising costs, right? Or like a pretty good advertising campaign to get yourself off the ground and see some positive cash flow.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, depending on how much work you put into it, you can do organic marketing methods as well. Maybe influencer marketing is another route you can go, reaching out to people. Maybe you could even send them some free products just to create some content, or, you know, that gets into the realm of sponsored influencer content, which you're probably going to pay money for that too. But there are ways to organic. You could even just create your own content as well to promote the products.
If there's not actually a cost in terms of money, there's always a time cost, right?
Of course.
So
yep.
What's like the time commitment that like initial stages of dropshipping versus like when you get to like the mid end stage of dropshipping? Like what's the time commitment like?
Yeah, that's another great question. You know, the time commitment, of course, the time versus money investment into your marketing, that's a great correlation there. At least if you want to spend less time, you spend more money on the marketing. That's the main driver there. You know, in terms of the time commitment looking at it, I mean, you could do as little as just a couple hours a week to almost a full-time work week, really, a full schedule. You know, you could spend as little or as much time on this as you want. I mean, that's really the beauty of any sort of self-started business or sort of side hustle type of thing that people, you know, gravitate towards. I mean, of course, the more time and energy and effort you put into learning how to do it and putting your marketing out there, you know, obviously the more chances you have, the more lines in the water you have to hit something, right? To find some sort of success with it, or, you know, it's going to be more time investment the more you go into it, more than likely, just because, hey, if you're seeing positive ROI on it, you know, put more effort and energy into it.
Kind of going off of that, you also have to like find out what product will sell well and what product you can actually do for longer time. So how do you actually like go through, what's your process of finding your niche product? Because I've seen a lot of videos on finding the niche product, and I was wondering what's your take on that?
Yeah, so for finding the niche product, it's a bit of a process, of course. It's going to take a lot of time to sift through various different hashtags. Is a great way to go to find more sub niches. Another great strategy too is to get involved with subreddits. Because that's usually where you can sort of find things that are maybe more on the cutting edge a little bit. Also, TikTok is a great platform. A lot of people suggest to go through, you know, TikTok made me buy it. At that point, you're almost a little too late to it. I would say get more involved with the actual niche itself. Become just a fan. If you're already maybe a fan of that hobby or subculture or whatever it is, that's going to be a better ticket into finding things that are just a bit more needed or popular within a community.
So passion plays a really good factor in terms of like optimizing dropshipping.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you can get involved more closely to again, a hobby or a passion of people's, that's typically where you can have better brand strength and just build more of a community around your company brand and mission versus sort of just blasting out trending products. And, you know, to each can work on their own, but it just depends on the sort of strategy you want to go for.
Cool. Yeah. And you talked about, you know, you went to college and everything, and you seem like a pretty smart dude, but this isn't necessarily something you need a college degree for, right? So what kind of skills do you think are helpful, or like what kind of prerequisites do you think which would be best if you wanted to create a drop shipping store and go down this route?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't really need any formal education or anything to get into this, which is nice. And really the same could be said about pretty much any sort of self-started venture or side hustle or online business, dropshipping definitely being one of them. The best resource at the end of the day is going to be YouTube or just watching videos, watching content to learn how to do things. Sorry, is that kind of answer your question there with that, or?
Yeah, for sure. And just topping off of that, me and Fuad's biggest take is that ever since COVID, like there's been a heavy emphasis on like independence, right? And like being self-reliable. And I think that's where we really saw a big rise in side hustles, right? I mean, that's where I really started hearing about drop shipping. I mean, you were the pioneer of that. So it really speaks about like your independence. Like, do you have anything to add on to that and how like COVID really highlighted being self-reliant in that aspect?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, COVID, I was in the middle of my senior year at UCF and COVID was like, boom, dropped the bomb there. And yeah, everyone went home or just was like online classes, remote. I was an intern at the time too for a company, and they were just like, nope, peace out, see you later. And yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, one thing that's always really nice about side hustles, particularly like you're saying, or even dropshipping or anything like that, you're not going to fire yourself. I mean, you can sort of to a degree, depending on what you're doing there, but ultimately it's more on you. You are sort of the last line of defense, whether it be positive or negative in terms of whatever's happening in the world. And it could be a great thing. You can always sort of depend on yourself. You're not really reliant on somebody else's decision of whether or not they want to keep you on. So there's that. That's, I guess, why a lot of people gravitate towards it too. But
All right, so like shifting gears a little bit, one of the concerning things that I came across while like learning a little more about dropshipping was like the competition. The competition is kind of crazy. Like, so you could be selling one product in your site, and then someone else could literally be selling the same exact product on their site. So how do you maintain your competitive level in dropshipping? Because you do not have control over your suppliers and who they sell product to. So how do you control all of that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's another great question. It's something that is definitely a struggle with dropshipping, particularly because, again, like you said, you don't have control over suppliers really. Again, you don't really have any patents either on anything. So there's nothing that you can really do in that regard in terms of that. So what you can do is to differentiate yourself with your brand and your marketing and staying consistent, trying to create more of a catalog beyond just a single product. Of course, that's where a lot of people get started from. And that can be great. And some companies just operate really pretty simply, just with one product or something like that. But ultimately creating more of a brand around it and making sure that you have return marketing channels built up, whether it be an email list, things like that. Just also considering maybe over time making the jump into more traditional e-commerce where you are customizing the products and creating something more unique that other companies just frankly don't have, maybe modifying things, or that's more of a long-term strategy, something you could do later on with manufacturers and things, or maybe you do end up going to get a design patent, but at least early on, yeah, it's something that you're definitely going to face, and ultimately you just have to be the better marketer, build up those return channels, and there's not too much you can do, at least in the early days. There's much more you can do later on as you scale up or things like that. But yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the things you could do is like in terms of profitability margins, you could reduce those margins. So like I'm wondering how how much is your profitability margin? Like, what's your profit margin for each product that you sell? Is it based on the product that you are selling, or is it like a flat percentage based on the product that you put up in your shop?
Yeah, so I mean, it really varies. Typically you want to at least have some decent profit margins. I'd say at least 50% at the minimum on different products. You can go higher or lower depending on the category and depending on what the competition looks like, depending on what consumers are typically willing to pay for certain products. That sort of goes into the whole econ and things like that in terms of managing the pricing elasticity, things like that, of course. But in general, you sort of have to play it by ear almost. The more the better, but you also don't want to price out people too. So it's sort of just trying to find a happy medium.
All right, so like kind of giving a little more context on that.
Sure.
In that regard, with the black face mask, how much was your profit margin, and how much was the initial product that you bought for?
Yeah, so the initial product that I was purchasing was roughly about $4 or so. I'd say maybe $4 to $5, and then I was marking that up to about $18. I believe it was $17.95. So there's that. That's a pretty decent profit margin. I'd calculate the exact percentages there, but buying it for about 4 to 5 and selling it for about 18 or so. Now, of course,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah. And another nice thing with just selling products on an e-commerce store is you can, of course, also promote other products on your store. So a lot of people, they would buy maybe 1 or 2 face masks. You could even give potential volume-based discounts. There are some apps and things that you could do to provide volume-based discounts, or just like new customer discounts, things like that. But also a lot of people will go and buy other products on your store just because they're already on your store. And then you may even have higher profit margins on some of those other products, or you're just getting that average order value higher per customer, which is always great.
So what I'm hearing is that to have something that is a recurring purchase is very good for your drop shipping business.
Yeah, that could definitely help. Something that's like more usable. Of course, the face mask is a great example of that, just because if someone uses it, they like it, then they may buy from you again, which is cool. And with that, so of course, consumable type products. I mean, that's every shark on Shark Tank wants to get into the whole consumable product type of thing because there's more recurring orders. Makeup companies make a killing for a reason because of those recurring customers, of course. So that's something to consider. Maybe even just something that has different colors, different ways for people to sort of repurchase or purchase something similar to it.
Awesome. Yeah. So it looks like our time is about ending up. Would you like to give anyone listening a little any closing remarks? Maybe if it's like their first couple of weeks trying this out and they're losing some hope. What would you have to say to these these dropshipping newbies?
Yeah, I would say to keep pressing on. It's a struggle, that's for sure. But if you keep at it and keep putting in the effort, at the end of the day, eventually you might hit something. No guarantees, of course, but the surefire way to know that it won't happen is if you quit at the end of the day. So if you continue to at least put in some level of effort, you could, hey, maybe you hit it someday. You kept trying. So
yeah, man, there's no such thing as working too hard, and I think you're definitely a great example of that for sure. For sure. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Brennan. Again, thank you for being here with us. We greatly appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Brennan Valeski.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Take care now.
Thank you. Have a good one.